Hello, hello. This is Sheri from the Sheri K. Hoff Show, where we focus on living joyfully and successfully in your life and business. You can find us at sherikhoff.com. That's SherikayehOff.com. Tisse Mallon is a passionate and unconventional advocate for understanding human behavior. As the founder-director of the ELAR Institute, they lead with the science of connection, instructing their flagship program, The How of Happy. Over 16 years, Tisse has been at the forefront of emotional intelligence, neuroscience, and mindfulness education, fostering a global citizenship ideology that underscores the interconnectedness of humanity. With a rich background presenting at TEDx events and AIGA's Wellness by Design, Tisse envisions emotional intelligence as the cornerstone of a harmonious global community. Hi, Tisse. It's so great to have you here. We have a lot to talk about today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me, Sheri.
Yeah, well, we have a lot to talk about and we're so aligned. I love this idea of how of happy. So, but first, I'm intrigued on how you got started doing what you're doing. Tell us a little bit about your journey and what makes you passionate about what you're doing.
I'd be happy to. It came about really through my own journey that I was feeling really just lost and miserable. And it started kind of like in the middle of high school. And it lasted for about like 6, almost 7 years. And during that time, I started really seeking answers. I turned, I think, first to religion, and just, that didn't quite resonate for me. Nobody seemed to be able to answer questions I had. And then I turned to different sorts of help. So therapy, got put on medication for a while for depression. That didn't really do it. I turned to destructive behaviors. And after just searching and searching and searching, it seemed like the answers I was seeking just weren't around to be had. And I think ultimately it was like, well, what's the meaning of life? Like, why am I even here? Like, I see people doing their thing of like having a job that they hate, like it's 9 to 5, going home, having dinner, watching some TV, going to bed, doing the same thing the next day, living for the weekends, living for vacation, living for retirement, but just like kind of like wasting away, like not really enjoying life. And I didn't want anything to do with that. But eventually I found somebody. It was just kind of like at the last moment because, man, I was really like at the end of my rope. And I found somebody who was self-taught, and they called themselves an insight assistant. And they just shared with me, like on a human level, like their perceptions and what they had figured out, and shared their experiences and gave me that space that I was so desperately needing. And after working with him for some time, that's when all of a sudden I was like, this is the work that I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to help make this journey just a little easier, because life is challenging, it's difficult, and it really makes a difference when we have somebody there that can truly listen and that's willing to share from their own experience, from their own perspective with us.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was over what? Like 18 years ago now. And it's been the work that I have found most rewarding and most exciting. I enjoy getting to be there for people's aha moments and their sense of relief and finding what they care about in life.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much where it came from.
Well, I think a lot of people can relate to your story and how you got to where you are right now. I mean, I, had an experience where my younger brother died by suicide when he was 15 and I was 17. And I had that same sort of like 7-year sort of floundering period of, of not even having the hope of being happy. I just wanted to get to okay. And then I just came to this place of, well, first of all, my mom sent me Stephen Covey's book when I was pregnant with my first daughter. And that really set me on my path, this idea of, choosing, not just waking up and how do I feel today, but really choosing how you want to feel and how you want to create your day. So that was the start of my path back in 1993, 94. So I love what I do, and I feel super passionate about it too. And it's just so much fun to talk to somebody who feels the same way about their work. So let's talk. Oh, go ahead.
Sheri, I was just curious. You're talking about 7 Habits of Highly Effective People?
Yes.
That was my first book that my coach at that time handed me. And so I'm like, how beautiful is that?
Yeah. And I loved how he talked about the paradigm shifts, like of Anwar Sadat, and how the character-based part of his book and his work. Yeah, it was just a really grounding thing for me, and much of what I do is based in that grounding of that book. So yeah, we share that lineage, right? Thank you, Stephen Covey.
Yes.
His son, Stephen M.R. Covey, has a really good book on trust out too. So that's a good one. All right. So let's talk about personal growth, empowerment, self-fulfillment, mindset, mental health, and overcoming society's expectations of you to live a more fulfilling life. So that's a lot to unpack. So let's just start with the empowerment piece. How can people be more empowered?
Wonderful. Thanks for asking that. I really believe that everything starts with the way that we relate to ourselves. It's the relationship we have between me and myself, how I talk to myself, how I think about me, how I keep my word to myself. So one small thing that we can start bringing more awareness to build empowerment in our lives is to be aware of the language that we're using when we speak to ourselves, and really making sure that we're not repeating words of people that were harsh with us, of people who scolded us, of people who guilted us or shamed us. And oftentimes, sadly, those are the voices that are really, really loud in our heads. And so when we operate from that space of shaming ourselves, guilting ourselves, just making ourselves feel worse, it really drains our power. So just becoming more aware of how we're talking to ourselves is a really great first step. And it's challenging to shift it. But as always, the very first step is just having that awareness. And if we have that awareness, then we can choose to get curious about it and be like, like, whose voice is that? Like, if I were to think, like, who has spoken to me in that way before, I usually can identify, oh my goodness, that was like this particular teacher when I was little would speak to me like that. Or sometimes my mom would speak to me like that. Or some other authority figure in my life would say things like that to me. And I'm like, is that how I want to speak to myself? Did I enjoy that? And it's like, no. If I were somebody that I really cared about and found to be important and wonderful, and I wanted to help them flourish, how would I speak to them? And I think that curiosity really helps us, as opposed to trying to do it right or trying to do it better. Because the moment that I start noticing, oh my gosh, I'm beating myself up, and then I go, oh, I shouldn't be doing that. I should stop doing that. And now I'm like doing the same thing again. And it just kind of like layers. But if I can just bring my curiosity into that and say, like, I wonder where that's coming from. Or if I wanted to speak to myself in a more gentle way, what might that sound like? And curiosity just really opens it up so that we can find new words within ourselves.
I love it. And I love the gentle approach. It's not the, well, what's wrong with me? It's, how can I be gentle? How can I ease into this? And it's just, kind of a soft way to find your way. It's really beautiful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And hearing you just kind of reflect that back to me, one thing that I find really, really important came up, and that's, I try to help people really make the distinction between their true selves and their biology. So what I mean by that is the human brain is built to be a survival machine. And there's a part of us that's just going through the motions. That's just pure machinery. And then there's the consciousness. There's like the awareness. And when we can start distinguishing what's the part of me that's just kind of the machine, what's the part of me that has a reactive thought or a reactive action even, when I can start distinguishing that from what I care about and what I desire and who I strive to be, that's more attached to the consciousness and self-awareness, intentionality. Now, when I make that distinction, I can really care for my survival brain as this entity that I get to care for and guide. So it's not wrong that I beat myself up. It's just the old programming. And now I've determined, you know what, that doesn't serve me anymore. I don't want to continue down that path. That doesn't feel very helpful. So now I'm just going to notice it so I can redirect it and say, no, brain, we're going this way. We're going in this direction. Instead of thinking that me beating myself up is who I am, or me doing something a particular way has to do with my identity. No. We want to really make that separation, make that distinction so that we can step more and more in that direction of who we choose to be.
I love that. And, I remember on my journey, one of the things that, as you go through awareness and discovery, I would be like, almost like angry with my survival brain, and now, I'm at the point where I'm just so thankful. I'm thankful that I have a survival brain because, it keeps us safe. It says, "Ooh, look out for that car." There's, and it makes us breathe, and it makes us sense danger when there's really danger. And so I think I did sort of like this whole big circle thing of, like uniting both parts of that with the conscious self, the spiritual self, with this wonderful mechanism that keeps us safe and has helped us evolve over, all these, thousands and thousands of years.
Absolutely. It's like, it's not out to get you. It's not like you're fighting your survival brain. It's like doing some things that would be really tedious or like just difficult. It's taking care of those automatically, easefully, in such a beautiful way. And so we can collaborate, so to speak, with our survival brain, as opposed to fighting it or thinking that it's out to get me.
So when people, that you work with they're going through the awareness piece and starting to realize, okay, I can choose differently. What's the next step after that?
Once I realize, I have this behavior and I'm wanting it to be different, I'm starting to notice when it comes up. Like, now, what's the next step? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
So say, for example, I notice, classic example, right? Like the sense of wanting to get a certain amount of things done in a day, right? Like I have my list of 20 things and I set out in the morning, I had my list in front of me and I was feeling really inspired and just like very ambitious to get it all done. And by midday, I'm just saying, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to get everything accomplished that I want to get accomplished in that day. And very easily, I can start kind of like digging myself into a hole of, I'm behind, I'm not getting enough done. What's wrong with me? Why am I always far behind? That sort of thing. So then I go, oh, wait, there's that voice. There's that voice telling me that I'm not enough, that I need to work harder, that I need to compensate for something. And so now we want to be willing to question the reality that we're in that moment. We want to be able to like just bring some curiosity and be like, what if my best is enough? What if? And I'm not saying you have to believe it in that moment. Sometimes in that moment, it just feels really, really hard because we have responsibilities that we've taken on. We have dreams that we're wanting to accomplish. And really what it comes down to is, if I beat myself up or if I'm feeling really crappy about myself, is that going to help me? Is that going to give me more energy? Is that really going to make me go faster? Am I going to have better ideas? And really, when we start looking at that, we notice that it's not true. that the reason why we're beating ourselves up is because we have a commitment to being better or being more or producing more, creating more. But if we take a look at the logic behind how I actually get to create more and how I have more energy, I can very easily see that beating myself up is going to pull energy away as opposed to add energy.
Uh-huh.
And so by just kind of like questioning, like, okay, what's my reality? What am I doing to myself? I can now start shifting into something that's more intentional. And one of the things that I really like to do with people is to break it down into strategies, right? Like instead of looking at what's right or wrong or good or bad, we're just going to look at strategies. Is this an effective strategy or is it an ineffective strategy? And when I can look at it from that strategy point of view, I can now invest in it in a new way as opposed to having that moral struggle of who I should be and how I should be.
So what would be the strategy shift for the person who realizes that their to-do list was totally overwhelming?
Okay, so yeah, so if your to-do list is totally overwhelming, the first thing to do is to get yourself out of a state of wrongness, of like, there's something wrong with me that I made this list, that I took on too much, or that I can't do it. Just let go of that and really take on getting curious about what can I get done? And all we can ever ask of ourselves is to do our very best. And that's it. And so as human beings, we have so many needs. We have needs for food. We have water needs. We have needs for rest. We have needs for just like getting to breathe for a while. We have needs for connection. We have needs for stimulation. So we want to make sure that we're looking at all of those needs at once, as opposed to hinging everything on maybe like the productivity that we're accomplishing at work.
Mm-hmm.
So when I take a look at that situation, I can now really assess what is too much for me. What do I tend to get done? And can I be honest with myself about that? So when I can be honest with myself about that, it helps me to create plans for myself that actually work. Really come from that mindset of what's a strategy that I can have for today that is realistic for me, and not make myself wrong for me, like my own evaluation of like, oh, that might be too little. So like if I can get 2 things done today, heck, if I can get 1 thing done today, right? And that's within my capacity, and that's the limit of my capacity. Can I do that 1 thing well, with pride, with a sense of accomplishment? Can that be enough for me?
Well, as a list maker, maybe I should say recovering list maker. I can remember around the time of reading the Stephen Covey book, my goal was, how can I manage my time so I can cram even more into my day? That's kind of where I was. And, of course that's evolved, and I look at it more as energy management instead of time management. How can I create my day so I have the energy for the things that are important to me? And one of the things that I do, because I still slip into maybe my objectives for the day are too demanding or too much for any one human being, is as I'm going through my day, I've just used the word revise, revise, revise. And so I'm constantly revising, and it's almost like, okay, I'm taking this plate, I'm putting it over here. And it works. It really works for me. And it's awesome for when a person finds something that works. So the revision doesn't mean failure or, that there's something wrong with the day. It just means, kind of like a realization on my part that, maybe my expectation was too high or some other glitch came into the day that, prevents that kind of focus or, that kind of accomplishment. So, and I think that's really on the daily what people struggle with. It's their day-to-day responsibilities, and this feeling of, like you said, am I doing enough? As a coach, I have lots of my clients say, like we always celebrate wins, and I'll get the comment of, well, I don't feel like I did enough. That's a common human thought, and it steals so much joy from us, and it steals the moment, and all the kind of good feels that we have in our day when we go down that route. So
Absolutely. And it's so amazing how alone we feel in it. Like I'm feeling over here, I'm not enough, and everybody else is. Like there's something wrong with me that I can't quite keep up. And like as you say, when I hear multiple clients coming and telling me the same thing, I'm like, I'm seeing a pattern here. And I let them know, hey, what you're experiencing is not unique to you. It's called being part of like the human race, and being a part of the human race in this particular society with these particular values. And so we want to start really questioning, like, what do you want for yourself? And bringing the focus also into, aside from what you want to accomplish, what's the experience you want to have on a day-to-day basis? Because if I just focus on what's my maximum productivity, I don't think that's a very enjoyable experience for anyone. But if I can invite myself into, where is my greatest joy? And notice, like, I think a lot of people fear that if they lean into enjoyment or pleasure or peace, even, that the fear is that they won't do anything, that they're just going to sit around all day and not create or not produce anything at all. And I don't think that's true. If you look at children, like the purest beings that there are, you'll see that they want to create, they want to engage with the world, they want to do. And I think that this speaks to the human spirit. That's part of just who we are naturally. When people are afraid of, well, if I just lean into pleasure or joy, I'm going to not do anything. To me, that's a sign of somebody who's been pushing themselves too hard. Because when you're pushed, all you want is rest. I just need a break already. And so that's why it's like, oh, if I just lean into my joy or pleasure, I'm not going to do anything. No, you just need to rest for a moment and then trust that who you are will bubble up and will call you into action, will call you in, like through inspiration, to do things that you actually get to enjoy doing and creating, as opposed to having to force yourself or push yourself. That's why I don't like the word motivate. To strive to be motivated is to strive to get yourself to do something you don't want to do. And I see the big inspire poster that's on your wall behind you. And I'm like, yes, that's my word. Inspiration. Inspiration is that calling you into action. And I believe that that's available for all of us in a really joyous way, where we're not forcing ourselves to do something we don't want to do.
Yeah, I'm big into inspired action. And sometimes we have to walk ourselves into the inspiration, like, I don't mean for, by anything forced, but sometimes, we're so closed down that we don't recognize inspiration sometimes when it's there. So there are things that people can do to kind of unlock it, like music, meditation, journaling. Those kinds of things help unlock that inspiration. But one of my favorite questions to ask is, how do I want to be being? Instead of what do I want to do? How do I want to be being? So when I think of like my days in my life, I think of the beingness in my life. And that helps me, dial it back from the striving and the perfectionism that, I'm going to admit is part of my DNA, a little bit. So, I don't want to say recovering, because I feel like all aspects of ourselves contribute to who we are. And so like the things that can be our big stumbling block are also the things that can be our greatest assets too. So that beingness question is what helps me stay on a path of gentleness for myself, and really doing the things that I want to be doing instead of the things I think I should be doing.
I love that. That really resonates with me. If I can get curious about how I want to be versus what I want to get done in a day, I think it helps me just really enjoy my experience, as well as I think it funnily enough, I think it does help us get the things done, but it's shifting our experience and it's shifting the energy that's available to us as we do them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So let's talk about your programs and how people can get in touch with you. Like, who do you serve? Who are the people that you help, and how can people find you?
Awesome. Thanks. My program right now that I offer is called the How of Happy. And it's like, well, we all know we want to be happy, but how do we cultivate that in our lives? And how do I define happy? Because it's such a unique and personal thing. It's not just like one cookie cutter answer. And so the How of Happy is a class that I deliver on a weekly basis. It's 1 hour out of your week. I've got a couple of times you can choose from. It's all online at the moment. And this curriculum helps you to identify what it is that you care about, and then how to go about cultivating more of that in your life so that you get to really enjoy your experience in living. So if you want to find out more about that class, people can go to howofhappy.org and check out the program. We offer a 2-week free trial for that program.
Wow, that sounds wonderful. It sounds like, everybody on the planet could use a little bit more happiness or direction on how to get there. One of the things that I love about, when I was researching your background is how you have this idea that if everyone practiced emotional intelligence, we would have a much peaceful world. And I have that same, a little different twist on it. I feel like if we all had excellent personal leadership, we'd have a lot more peace. I mean, I've said that many times in many places, and it's in that same alignment of, I think when we start with the individual, we create this huge ripple effect that impacts, who knows, millions of people. One person practicing emotional intelligence, practicing excellent personal leadership can be that change.
Absolutely. And I think that we are living in such a wonderful time that we're seeing more and more of it. I think we're really getting to witness that shift and transformation in the way general society views self, and like the development of communication and care for one another. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see it around me. I'm excited to see more people going into this work, more people teaching it, and really the awareness of its value is coming to light bit by bit. But for sure it is.
Yes. I love the optimism. I'm a total optimist, love it. And I wouldn't have it any other way. So I love it when people have a couple actionable things that they can take away. So if someone is just feeling kind of like we were talking about in the beginning of being in that place of kind of a little bit of despair, or even just kind of that meh sort of feeling, like, not really passionate about anything, what are 1 or 2 things that they could start right away, leaving this podcast and creating some change?
So I want to share actually the little phrase that I use at the end of every single class, because I think it really speaks to the core of all of it. And what I say is, as you go back out into this wilderness that is your life, I really, really hope you stay connected to the source of your feelings. That's the first part. Stay connected to the source of your feelings, because that's really like your guidance system. So listen to it. And it doesn't mean that everything is necessarily true, but that's where we begin. So stay connected to the source of your feelings. Stay connected, number 2, to the preciousness of your presence. That's truly the gift that we have available to give to one another as well as ourselves. Like, don't leave yourself out of that mix. And then lastly, I really hope you stay connected to your role as creator of your life experience. And that one simply says, don't forget that that's what we're up to here, that you may not be in control of the situations that you're being faced with, but you are absolutely in control and creating your experience of them. And so those are the 3 things I say. And I think that that's really the core of all of the work that I do. Stay connected to your feelings, really focus on the preciousness of your presence, and acknowledge your role as creator of your life experience.
Mm, mm. I love that. So everyone can take that away and start that work. Thank you so much for being here. And I want to thank all of our listeners wherever you are in the world. And I want you to have a great day, great afternoon, great evening, no matter where you are. I love you, and we'll talk soon. Take care. Bye-bye. Visit SheriKayhoff.com. That's SheriKayEHoff.com for more podcast episodes, or you can say, Alexa, play the Sheri Kaye Hoff Show. This podcast is syndicated globally, and you can listen anywhere where you're listening to your other podcasts. Some examples are Apple, Google, Podlink, Podcast Addict, Spotify, and many more.